Hello friends, welcome to Alternative Building Sciences, or Earthbuilding. I want to talk to you in this first video about some of the materials you're going to need to gather for the hands-on project that's part of this assignment. So you're going to learn about why you need these materials when you do some of the readings for this course, but I just want to show you what they are so that you have as much time as possible to collect them in case for any reason some of them are hard for you to find. So the first thing you're going to need is some kind of flat thing. Could be a piece of old scrap plywood, could be a baking tray if you got one that your folks don't mind you getting real dirty for a while. You probably won't destroy it, but if it's not real coated it could get a little bit rusty, but if it's aluminum it should be fine. Ask your parents before you use it. You could also use like a big cutting board, or if you had like a bunch of cardboard, I guess you could like wrap it in plastic, or maybe you could even use like a sled, or just anything that's kind of flat and at least this size. You could go bigger if you want to make a bigger project. The bigger you make it, the longer it's going to take you, but I'll leave you to your own ambitions. Yeah, something flat. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is some dry stuff, like grass. If you happen to have access to straw, you could use straw. I just cut some grass out of the yard and let it dry for a little while. It seemed like it took, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days before it was really good and dry, and you definitely want to wait till it's really good and dry. Technically, if you cut grass green and let it dry, it's not straw, it's like more like hay, which you wouldn't really build with if you wanted your thing to last like 100 years, because eventually the water molecules that are stored in this are going to like break down or cause it to get softer and less good. If you really wanted to build something that was going to last a really, really long time, you would take stuff that's completely dead, like especially straw, which is like dead grain stems, and you would use that. But for our purposes, cutting grass and letting it dry is going to work just fine. Your thing's going to last a heck of a long time, probably much longer than you're interested in it for. Okay, now, and don't go cutting up the front lawn. Don't cut a giant square out of your grass in front of your house, but cut grass somewhere that it's maybe already too tall or not needed. And you don't need that much, like that's going to be plenty for my project. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is some dirt. But dirt isn't just dirt for the purposes of alternative building. It's composed of like at least 3, maybe 4 or 5 different things. So if you just like dug up the lawn, what you would have is you'd have first the sod, the grass and the roots of the grass on top. And then you would have what's called the topsoil, which is like kind of depending on where you are, it's like kind of dark in color, and it usually has some kind of like roots and like decaying plant stuff in it. And then if you keep digging, usually it's, I don't know, it might be below 3 inches, depending on where you are, it could be more than 6 inches. Around here it's usually not that deep. But below that, what you're going to have is subsoil. And subsoil is also different depending on where you are. If you're living in the valley, your subsoil is probably going to be mostly clay, and what that means is it's composed of really, really, really tiny grains of rocks and minerals that when you get them wet, they're so small that they kind of float for a long time, and they want to like slide past each other because they're not big enough to like run into each other if they're wet at all. So you're going to have a lot of clay. If you were building a house, like a house that you wanted to live in, you wouldn't just use that subsoil. for our purposes, it is going to work fine. It might just mean you'll get some additional cracking. But if you do happen to live near a stream, or if you happen to have a sandbox, what you can do is dig up either a little bit of stream bottom and filter out the rocks, or steal some from your sandbox. And then you'll get the other thing that subsoil is composed of, which is sand. And sand, of course, is different than clay. Sand is, it's gritty, you can hear it. It's got this sound to it when you rub your fingers on it. It doesn't come into soft pieces at all. And sand is really the kind of the magic ingredient for earthbuilding if you can get your hands on it. Because even when it's damp, the individual grains of sand, they like run into each other and they like don't want to get smooth and slippery. They cause stuff to like stick together kind of solidly. And if you could get your hands on some sand, that would be great. If you do get pure sand from like your sandbox, you could even mix a little bit of clay with it, because you don't want it to be like pure sand. You want mostly sand and a little bit of clay, ideally, if you can find it. Okay. The next thing you're going to need is rocks, and you'd like to have some small rocks, like really small rocks. Some of these are like, I don't know, like a 1/16 of an inch across or something. Some of these are maybe like as big as, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or 1/3 of an inch. And then you can have some rocks that are a little bit bigger. And then you might have just a couple like bigger rocks. I have to imagine everyone has access to rocks, but if for some reason you don't, if you could walk to a road, you could steal like a little bit of asphalt chunks. I think that would probably work fine. Or gravel. You'd like to have some really small stuff if possible. But if not, that's not a big deal. Okay, other things you might need. Those are your building materials mostly. But you might want also a few other things. You might want some scrap plastic, like maybe a milk carton, or like if you got a Tupperware container that's broke, or I don't know, just look through your recycling container and see what you can find. But some kind of relatively flat and clear plastic. It wouldn't all have to be clear, but you could use it for like roofing and windows. And then if you happen to have some glass that you don't need, you could go and break it carefully outside or in a wastebasket. And then some like pieces of glass would be neat for windows. Just make sure you don't put yourself on the sharp edges. And then, if you had an old t-shirt, that'd be good. I think it's getting loud outside. I think that's the only stuff that'll be hard to find at all. Everything else, I'll make a list, but I think everything else won't take you more than a few minutes to find. But have an eye out for that stuff while you're doing your reading in the first few days, so that when you're ready to start your project, you'll have most of the things prepared. Because especially if you cut the grass, you've got to let it dry, and if you do get sand from like a stream, or if you get sand from a sandbox after a rainy day, you're going to want to kind of let it dry out. So do that. Find those materials first before you do anything.